Okay, ChristchurchNZ, welcome along.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
Kia ora te marino, kia whakapapapunamu te moana hui e tai ki e. Kia ora koutou, thank you for having us here today. I think you all know Therese. Look, we're going to rattle through the Q3 report, conscious that you guys have got lots of briefings going on at the moment. So to start off, just as a quick refresh, you have directed us over the past couple of years to create a really clear vision and framework for the city's economic future. And in the last 18 months, we've developed and implemented the city identity, the destination management plans, and most recently, the Christchurch economic ambition. And all three of these city frameworks have informed our strategy as an organisation. And part of developing our strategy was to get really crystal clear on the logic behind our planned interventions. We have limited resources, you know that more than most, and we need to be really targeted in how and when we engage. Our intervention logic is really clear. We do not get in the way of the private sector. We do not duplicate what the private sector or other organisations are doing. We look for areas of market failure or opportunity that need a boost, and we get involved through time-bound, focused interventions that have impact. Just a reminder that as the city's economic development agency, you have tasked us to deliver sustainable economic growth for Ōtautahi Christchurch. So what does success look like? Our framework defines success as delivering improvements to Christchurch's productivity, livability and attractiveness. And I'm going to focus on each of these outcomes in turn this quarter. It is actually a slightly new way of reporting. So do let us know if you find it helpful offline. It'd be really good to just hear what you think. So let's start with productivity. So the number of people working in Christchurch's 5 highest productivity sectors rose by 2.4% in 2023. And that's equivalent to just under 10% of the local workforce. And while growth is clearly slowing nationally, we all know that, in Q3, Christchurch's GDP growth of around 0.5% remains slightly above that national average of 0.2%. Demand for labour is cooling. The unemployment rate has risen to 4.9% in Christchurch in March compared to 4.7% nationally. And the context for that is partly because our region is continuing to attract migrants from elsewhere in New Zealand, and hence the labour force has been growing faster than the rate at which jobs are being created. So I'm going to stick with productivity and talk about one of the areas we've been working over the past quarter. So you can see the importance of success stories like this one, which is the Riverlands Foods Factory in Hornby, which opened in late March after construction began in June last year. It's already created 28 FTEs. And this number is expected to grow as the business expands. The company was founded 3 years ago by Richard Zhu, who was originally attracted to Christchurch to study at Canterbury University as an international student. And when he needed a location for a large-scale pet food business, he had really specific criteria. He needed a skilled labour force, easy access to fresh produce, and a really innovative business ecosystem. And Christchurch ticked all those boxes. And one of the quotes that Richard says is, "The city's vibrant atmosphere and emphasis on innovation provided the perfect environment for me to cultivate the skills and knowledge necessary to establish our factory, and a great reason to base Riverland here." Now, despite many pet food brands are based in the North Island, much of New Zealand's red meat industry is actually South Island based. And a pet food cannery close to the source of protein made sense environmentally. It helps to de-risk the business and ensures a fresher product. And another key reason for choosing Christchurch was the need to move really quickly in a fast-changing industry. Riverland is focused on a modern approach to pet nutrition with an emphasis on R&D. And Richard told us that the skilled workforce here and the access to talent from both UC and Lincoln were great advantages for us. The CNZ team has worked really closely with Riverland Foods around site selection, ingredient suppliers and sustainability advice to help them achieve their targets and capture significant investment and new jobs to Christchurch. I'm going to move on now to livability. I'm just going to literally give one economic kind of overview and then one story for each of the 3 areas. So we all know that house prices have retreated from the peaks of the last couple of years, especially if you're someone who bought at the peak of the market like me. That's always joy. And as you can see, in March of this year, Christchurch's house prices had fallen by just 2.7% from that peak, compared to really significant drops of just under 15% in Auckland and just under 19% in Wellington. And the net inflow of migrants that I referred to earlier into Canterbury has sustained our market. And our average house price in quarter three of $688,000 remains 32% lower than Auckland's average and 13% lower than Wellington's. And that means that we still have an affordability advantage over other key cities, and that's helped to maintain that flow of domestic migrants. In turn, that's been good for our employers, because I'm sure you remember that just a couple of years ago I was sitting here telling you that the biggest challenge facing the city's business community was the lack of available workers. Now, you've heard me talk about New Brighton a lot. That's unsurprising. Our urban development projects tend to be longer term and they take more time to come to fruition. But in New Brighton, the momentum really accelerated in quarter three. So ChristchurchNZ's urban development team is working alongside the community and alongside private developers in facilitating two developments, Beresford to Pakamaro on Beresford Street and Seaview on the site of the former Central New Brighton School between Hawke and Seaview Streets. And the developments are part of Christchurch New Zealand's New Brighton Regeneration Project. And that recognises that more people, as either residents or visitors, are what's needed to bring vibrancy and buzz back to New Brighton. The Beresford Street project has been granted resource consent for all 63 homes and building consent for the 25 homes in the first phase of the development, which is about to begin construction. All the homes are designed to be future-proofed for adverse weather events and are warm, healthy and light, meeting New Zealand Green Building Council's 7 home star standards. And our intervention has been pivotal in attracting the private sector, including the latest announcement by local developer Martini Investments that the first stage of a new hospitality hub called Pierside in the New Brighton Mall will be opened by Christmas. The story of New Brighton's revitalisation is a really great partnership between council, the private sector, the community and ChristchurchNZ, who coordinate through the Better Brighton working group that includes your own Councillor Donovan. And I know you had a really informative presentation on this as part of the LTP submissions earlier this month. And we were also really happy to see that the story of working together made the front page of the press the following week. To see the community get in behind this joint effort really demonstrates the value of this synergistic approach. So attractiveness. Now attractiveness includes not just the attraction of visitors, it includes the attraction of investment, businesses, students and events. And in quarter three, international visitor spending in Christchurch hit a new quarterly record of 127.3 million. Monthly international arrivals at Christchurch Airport and accommodation occupancy also both hit their highest post-COVID levels during February. And as we've been noting in our monthly economic insight reports, that strong visitor spending has helped to offset a drop in domestic spending and is really helping to boost the service sector performance. The visitor economy expanded in Christchurch every month of quarter three compared to just 1 month of the quarter nationally. And one of the things that drove that, of course, was major events. So it was a packed summer showcase demonstrating the vibrancy events bring to the city. We had 12 major events, drawing tens of thousands of visitors and $20 million worth of visitor spending from a quarterly investment of $1.5 million. And the photo here is from Electric Ave, which generated 30,000 visitor nights, and the World Buskers Festival drew 109,000 attendees. We've been evolving our approach to the legacies that come with many events, and I just want to highlight an especially impactful one that demonstrates the power of our different teams working together. During round 5 of the Super Sprint Motorsport New Zealand Championship, we helped to launch the world's first hydrogen-powered drift car with Christchurch company Fabrum. We hosted the White Ferns, the Black Caps fixtures, culminating in a really tense finish in the Australia versus Black Caps test match at Hagley Oval, and then, of course, we had the most exciting racing on water back again, hosting the ITM Sail Grand Prix with only 12 weeks' notice. And you know that event was not without its challenges, but I'm sure you will have seen Peter Burling's message to ChristchurchNZ that we had delivered the greatest day in Sail GP history as the Black Foils took out the final on home waters. Many of these events are done in partnership with Venues Ōtautahi and Council, and they showcase the beautiful venues that we have. And then finally, just to show you a snapshot of some of our levels of service, we have 26 levels of service, and at the end of Q3, we're on track to meet 23 of them. The remaining 3 are currently receiving some remedial action. And rather than run through them all, as you can see the details in the written report, I just wanted to highlight 6 of them. So we've attracted more than $1.75 million of central government and private sector funding. Our business events team have generated more than $40 million in estimated business event attendee spend. And they've done that by submitting 53 bids to attract business events to Christchurch with more than 21,000 delegates. More than 500 businesses have accessed support, mentors and advice through us. We've had over 4,000 downloads from our public toolkit to help businesses tell the Christchurch story. 83 trade agents and investors have been hosted in the city, and 4,500 people have actively engaged with the ChristchurchNZ Economic Insights, meaning people start to understand our role as an important source of economic insights for the city and the region. That's it from me. I'm going to wrap up there and see if you've got any questions.
Thank you, Ellie and Therese. That was brilliant. I really enjoyed that, and it's really good to see what you're doing. Kelly, and then someone else at the end. Oh, Hex. Tim, and then Andre.
Yeah, fantastic. Positive report. Thank you very much. Could you talk a little about the growth of Tāwhaki since the National Aerospace Centre, since they put in the new runway, and how that's affecting the local businesses like Dawn Aerospace, Care, etc.?
So I haven't got the numbers off the top of my head and I can't remember them. Apologies. We do know, and I'm happy to follow up with them afterwards. But the key thing for Tāwhaki is getting in that sealed runway, which enables horizontal takeoff and landing as well as the vertical takeoff and landing. We are actually very close to being able to sign off a Canterbury aerospace strategy that we're working with people like Tāwhaki, Dawn, Kia, University, the airport with to develop, to try and get really clear on exactly where the advantages are for Christchurch and the broader Canterbury region in the space sector. But there's no doubt that Tāwhaki is the jewel in the crown, and having it as a national aerospace centre is really important. I heard a lovely quote the other day. I was chatting to one of my colleagues from Auckland who was talking about aerospace, and she said, but we won't go there because Christchurch has already locked that up. Now, I don't think that's true, but I was thrilled that that was her perception. So, yeah, look, I think it's a hugely important economic attractor and retention tool for our region.
Yes, because I see that there's, 1,400 jobs forecast to come in over the next 10 years and $2.4 billion
It's really significant. The numbers are massive. The aerospace, and it's high productivity as well, which is really fantastic for the aerospace industry. So yeah, they're the numbers. I think we had them in the quarterly report, but I haven't got them on the top of my head. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. It's outstanding. It really is. My question is, I've got 2 questions. First one is the CIL. Following COVID, Christchurch Airport bounced back 7%. I think when Auckland bounced back 3%, which is great. However, percentage-wise, Queenstown bounced back 23%. I think those were your figures via CIL. My concern is, and one of the CIL staff came to the long-term plan, and wee bit tongue-in-cheek, I've got another word for it, but we won't go there. With regards to, I've asked a couple of times what the effect could be to Christchurch if tariffs went ahead. And so with your tourist figures, is there any way we can get the information, those tourists landing here, where do they go? My assumption, and with kind of information given by others, is that they're going to the Lakes District, which is totally logical.
I think it's probably not a question for the team here.
Well, I'm just wondering,
do you know where they're going? Tim, I'm saying it's not a question.
Okay.
So if you've got a different question, that's...
No.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Well, Lauren will follow up with you separately too.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, Andre, and then I've got Aaron.
Thank you. Just comparing different events, how much visitor spend they generate. I'm looking at Foo Fighters, 3 million visitor spend, Bread and Circus, 590,000 visitor spend. But it works out on the people attended, $5 per person for the Buskers Festival, about $150 per person, Foo Fighters. Are you able to talk about how they're measured?
Yeah.
How you're measuring it's going to cost people a bit more when they are going into town for the buskers. And
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to
$7 million
remind you that
dollars.
the way we assess the major events that we want to bring to the city, and we do this using our major events strategy that you guys have signed off, and we work through our city partners group, which is the events ecosystem group. It's not just the visitor nights that we're assessing it on. The visitor nights is one of the three legs of the stool. So we're absolutely looking at what the pure economic impact is of getting people to stay longer. But we're also looking at the leverage and legacy that we can leave. You take an example like the lights at Hagley Oval wouldn't have happened had we not had the Women's World Cup as a driver to have it there, or there are other things where we can get that leverage and legacy. And then the third leg of the stool is the branding positioning. So those three all have a role to play. It's not just the lights. But do you want to talk, Lauren, a little bit about how we measure it? We use a very standard methodology called Fresh Info.
Like, when I see the Buskers Festival visitor spend, is that purely people from outside of Christchurch?
Yeah, so buskers is typically a lower visitor spend because it doesn't drive as much more visitation, and it's more one of those city identity and brand positioning events.
Yep.
And the catalyst for people coming into the city tends not to be buskers. It's something that they incidentally do, whereas something like Foo Fighters or Electric Ave drives pure visitation for just that event. Also, the demographic profile of attendees, buskers tend to be families, and they're spending less, whereas someone like a Foo Fighters attendee is coming in with a higher discretionary spend. And to Ali's point, that's where we look at a variety of factors when we create a full portfolio.
So you're still capturing average spends on what locals will be spending?
Absolutely, yeah. So I can give you quite a detailed breakdown. Yeah, sort of it's like a local will spend $6 as an example, then a regional attendee will spend, say, $12 per $1 that a local spends, and we go out. So an international visitor is the highest spending.
Cool. And just secondly, I'm wondering if you have any idea at this point in time what economic benefit a South Island NRL team bid would bring annually. I read in the paper the other day, it's in the tens of millions, which actually seems possibly conservative in a way.
We have been asked to look at that. So the team are working with both the NRL bids around what the possible economic impact will be. I can't give you a number at the moment. It depends on a few things: how many home, how many away matches, what kind of investment in that they do in terms of their team, and so there's a few things that the team are looking at. We've committed to supporting both bids with the same information so that we're not disadvantaging either of them. So once we put that package together, we'll also provide it to you guys.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Aaron, I think you got a question online.
Yeah, so I actually got three quick questions. The Electric Avenue, the numbers, it says 30,000 visitor nights from that, but only 35,000 people go to it, and I realise that some are here for more than one night. But how do we get to that number?
So that's how many nights they stay as opposed to how many people came into the city? Yeah. So it's in Electric Ave, off the top of my head, is 60% visitation, so really high visitor numbers. And then they stay on average 2 nights when they come in because, of course, they're not leaving afterwards and they come in the day before. So it's a long length of stay.
Right, okay.
Does that explain?
And yeah, it does. It does. If that's those numbers are bang on, then that's correct. Now the next one is, our visitor spend only seems to go back to pre-COVID. Do we record from back as far as pre-quake? And I realise that inflation's been at least 50% since pre-quake times, but what is the visitor spend pre-quake versus now? Like, are we ahead of the game?
Yeah, so
still behind where we were in 2010?
We do record spend pre-quake, but it's not as much of an indicator as market share. So how much of the share of visitors are we getting compared to our competitors? And Tim, to the point you made earlier, we're actually capturing market share off Queenstown. So our length of stay has extended from 1.8 to 2.3 nights, and that night that we've captured is coming directly from Queenstown. So Queenstown length of stay has reduced, their visitor spend has reduced, and their market share has reduced, and we know that those itineraries are now adding an extra night in Christchurch. we're well ahead of pre-quake spend, but we're not ahead of pre-quake market share, and that's because the share of the visitor economy in New Zealand has grown so significantly since 2010.
Okay, can we get maybe in next month's numbers, if we can get a bit of an oversight of how we're looking against the rest of the country from where we were to where we're going, would be really good, because even, negative or positive, certainly the positive ones always makes local people feel better. And then the other one is the visitor centre. Do we have an update on what's happening there?
So, no. Other than what we sent you last week, I think is probably the best way to say it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll just wait on that and see what happens. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Aaron. Phil?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Question, when is Milton Street going to have a peg in the ground?
Kath,
Please,
do you want to come and
please.
talk about that? Thanks.
So we're making good progress in terms of completely clearing the site at Milton Street. We have gone through an expression of interest process and a request for development process. We are shortlisted down to 3, and we expect to enter into a contract in coming weeks. It's just going through a board approval process at the moment.
So does that mean whoever the winner is, and I certainly don't need to know, do they then have to go for a building consent and all that sort of thing? So
They'll need to go through a consent
so
stage.
it could be.
There has been quite a lot of due diligence done already on the site.
Mm-hmm.
So all the invasive testing and a lot of work that would support a consent application. So a lot of that has already been done to assist with the consenting process.
I'll get this. Is it Niwa who got the other?
Yes,
bit? Are they looking to do? I'm just looking to see something coming out of the ground somewhere. When are they thinking of doing something?
So at this point in time, they have cleared the site and they're getting it ready, and they need to put up their fences, and they're looking to get on site this year, but we're waiting for them to confirm that in terms of central government funding for that next stage.
Okay, and is there a plan of what they're building?
Yep. I can
You
share
probably
that with
sent
you.
it to me, but I haven't seen it.
We'll send it again.
Yeah, I can send you some information on that.
Beresford Street, I see there that stage 1 is all sold. Is that what I've
Yes, it's all sold and it's underway on site now, which is really good. It's making good progress. And so the idea is to work on that first stage and then move into the other stages.
But when they go next time, will they go towards the sea or away from the sea with the next stage? Do you know?
They haven't confirmed yet.
Okay. And Riverlands, and this was that a new building or an existing building that they moved into?
New building.
Okay. And we just facilitated where they went, or did
We did connections to advice on sustainability, where they could do. Yeah, we did a variety of different pieces of advice. So it's quite complex. One of these, and we've talked about this a little bit, one of the challenges with economic development part of what we do, the IBG bit, the Martin Cudd part of the organisation, is that it's quite a subtle art. So a lot of it is a connection here and a suggestion here, but it's kind of it's a lot of work behind the scenes to make those things happen. So I can get you more detailed.
Oh no, that doesn't matter. So you facilitate.
We facilitate. We don't do the building.
We don't own.
No.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
This is cruise ship questions, actually. Sorry.
Musical chairs.
Thanks for the work that you guys have done over the summer, for Littleton in particular, but for Banks Peninsula. Just in terms of the average spend of cruise ship passengers in Christchurch, do we have a sense of the types of, can we correlate spend to like types of ship and that kind of stuff? Do we have a view on that?
Yeah,
this is
so
a multi-layered question, but go for it.
The preliminary data that you guys have been given is sort of the top line results. The full report is due at the end of June, and that will include market segmentation. So a 900-person ship, what their average spend is compared to, say, an Ovation of the Sea with 4,000 passengers, where they come from, are they US, are they Australia? And I think when we look at visitor spend at the moment, Australia and America are dauntingly good, and a lot of that's to do with cruise, and a lot of it is to do with direct airline connectivity, and so we're trying to strip that apart as well through surveys.
Right. Actually, that's an interesting point. Can we differentiate the spend between crew and cruise ship passenger? Probably not. That would be harder, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah, but location you can probably do
we
quite
can
well.
geolocate spend.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And just again, like the $135 a day, that's a passenger who leaves the ship. So so it's not the average of all the 250,000.
That's a free
that arrived in
independent
Littleton.
traveller.
But yeah, so do we know how many got off the ship?
Yeah, we do. So again, that will be in the report. It's about a third.
Yeah.
So a third
Yeah.
go on a pre-booked
Yeah.
tour, which is generally higher spend. Then a third are a free independent traveller, and they're the $135 a day. And then a third stay on the ship as an approximation.
Right, and we'll get the pre-book spend numbers as well, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, obviously flows into the local economy, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And it's going to cover Akaroa cruise ships as well?
Yeah, a little bit. It does some small comparative analysis against Akaroa. I guess what you can see is that the average spend in Akaroa was a lot lower because obviously there were less retail opportunities to spend money. And so by diverting them into central Christchurch, we've been able to expand the economic impact of a passenger.
Thank you. And actually, sorry, just one last final question. Thanks, sorry, Sam. We can get a sense of where people are going, Like, even the independent ones.
Yeah, so we've got what their standard itineraries look like, what attractions are they doing. Actually, what we're getting back is most of them want to do retail spend. They want to go shopping. So, yeah.
Okay, no, cool. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Great to see you. I've got 3 questions. The first one is actually around the local, domestic and international spend, and I'd like to second Andrea's request in seeing if I can get a breakdown of that. That'd be awesome to see a report on.
For events specifically, or for
just
regional spend from all local, domestic and international.
Yeah,
Whatever you've got would be great.
I think it also aligns with Tim's question before around what itineraries people are doing, where they're spending. So we can do a bit of a deep dive in that.
Right.
It's actually sitting in the destination management plan, so it's a good opportunity for us a year on to get that baseline and see how we've grown.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would lead me to my next question, and you'd probably know this, that we're looking at a local government New Zealand membership in the future. And they said that the conference actually brought in $1.1 million to our local economy. Do you have any further details on that conference itself, or do you sort of get a more broader range of spend?
Oh, we have quite a lot of details on that. We have hosted it in the past. It depends on what you want. I mean, we, as you've seen, we've done 53 bids this financial year already. So, and we haven't bid for local government NZ. That we've just had a conversation with them. 1.1 probably sounds about right.
I would say so too.
Yeah.
Cool. They're looking at coming biannually, which is something would be of benefit for the council to see whether that comes through. The last question is actually for Therese.
Come on.
And I just wanted to sort of gain sort of an insight into how you're going with the board in terms of a governance level, and your thoughts around CNZ and the way that they're going moving forward.
We're at a pivotal turning point, really, for ChristchurchNZ at the governance level. Later this year, the last 3 of the originals, as we call ourselves, 3 directors who joined ChristchurchNZ board from the start to shepherd the organization from startup, basically, from the amalgamation of different functions through to this point. And that includes Paul Bingham, Stephen Barclay, and myself. We will be leaving the board by the end of the year. And in your wisdom, when we went through the search for directors previously, and it was quite a rigorous 6-month search, which included public advertising, the quality of people who applied was incredibly high. And in your wisdom and in CCHL's recommendation was that we take on an extra director at that time to actually recognizing that the chair and the deputy chair and another one of the originals would be leaving the board, to build up that knowledge around the table. And I want to thank you for that, because that has really helped the organization prepare for a significant change that's coming our way. But can I say the timing is absolutely perfect? The organization, I think, has arrived at a new maturity. When you first start up, you hope that you can get to a place where you no longer think of yourself based on the separate functions that you do, but rather the organization overall. And that's where we are. And hopefully you can see that in the reporting today. It's not about the different branches of the organization. It's about the outcomes that we've agreed that will deliver for the city. So I could not be more proud of where the organization is. And there will be significant change, but it has been managed extremely well. So thank you. And thank you for all your support.
Thanks, Therese.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work that you've done and for the excellent report. I was just wondering, we're hearing a lot of the positives, but are you measuring things like household debt, for example? Are there any sort of measures that you've got to show what's happening with inequity or inequality in our city? And so we know kind of where we're trending?
So I think I mentioned this to you last time, and I still don't have a perfect answer for you. It's really complex to measure that. I still believe that our suite of measures are not ideal. I think it is quite hard to draw a very clear line of sight between one of our interactions and something that we do. It's easier in some parts of our business. We do an event, we can work out exactly how many people come, but as in some of the economic development work, it's much harder. So we need a suite of measures to enable us to be able to check the direction of travel. I don't think we've got that quite right yet, and I think equity is an area that we need to really look into. We are, but I haven't got an answer for you yet because it is really complex. And there isn't actually an economic development agency that I can find in the country that's doing this really well. If you do see anything, we will steal with pride. But at the moment, it's a really complex area to measure. But we're on it. We recognise it's important.
Thank you. Just wondering if you could, there's not much in the report that I can, there's a performance measure around the screen stuff, but we've had a lot of submissions through the LTP. I was wondering, can you just give us a bit of an overview of the grant that we put into Screen Canterbury and what the impacts have been from your sense? Are you able just to kind of give us an overview of the impact and success of that grant?
So I'm hoping that I shared some information recently with management. I hope that's got through to you that actually had the link to the report, the Screen Canterbury review. If you haven't got that, I'm really happy to send it again. We've got a short 2 or 3 page report that just shows you the Screen Canterbury impact. Roughly, it's about 12 to 1 return, dollar for dollar. And it's been fantastically effective. The issue we have is that how you balance that when you've got limited funding, it's what I would call incentivizing. Of course, it's incentivizing. We incentivize business events to come here. We incentivize major events to come here. We incentivize the screen industry to come here. Trying to work out how we do that is really complex when we've got limited funding. And so do I think it's effective? Absolutely. Do we have the money to continue it? Not really, because we would have to drop other things. And we're going to come and talk to you next week in a PX session about some of what genuinely are different level of scale initiatives that we're working on. We can't talk about them in public because they're so confidential. But yeah, look, it's enormously effective. And I think we've really got the flywheel turning. I think one of the key things about economic development is it takes a while to get things moving. And when you get them moving, they really start to accelerate. And if you take the pressure off, you go back to square one. And in fact, in some cases, you go back further than square one, and you've then got to start again. So look, it's just about choices.
Just in the final question from me really is, this is quite a public briefing, I appreciate that, but a number of the events that are listed in terms of the spend to attract the event or to invest in the event versus the outcomes, are we going to get, I've previously asked this question around, like, for example, the World Buskers, are we going to get an understanding of the level of investment to the return?
Yes, I don't think there's a reason that we wouldn't share that, but I would like to just re-point out the fact that it's not just about the financial return. There are other elements to it, but yes, absolutely, we're comfortable sharing that.
When we're in a constrained situation
Absolutely.
As we are, and we're hearing from people around investments having a really positive return,
I hear that.
And then I look at SailGP and I think it says it's estimated $3 million visitor spend, which seems to be about the same price as what it would cost to put the event on. So
it's not. It costs a lot less than that to put it on.
right,
So
okay,
yeah, and a lot of the figures around sales GP that are quoted in the media are not accurate.
right,
I think there's an important differentiation between visitor spend, which is how much a visitor spends and how much we get from that event,
yeah,
compared to how much the event costs, the net GDP impact, what's spent on food, provenance. That is an entirely different number. It's not one we report on. We can, and we do have it, but we entirely base it on how many visitors come in and spend, because that is pure net impact. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Cool. Okay. Phil's happy to move. Sarah's happy to second. Yep. And thank you very much for coming in. And
Thank you.
that was really good. I think the level of questions would just signal how interested we are in what you do. So.
Yes, great. Thank you. Lovely to see you all. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. We'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Item 11.